The 1980s gave country music some of the most powerful songs ever put to tape. Songs that broke hearts, crossed charts, and changed the entire direction of an American art form.
Pulling up and turning down George Jones.
Some of these stories started in a movie studio, others in a bar with an empty wallet. One was written on a set of acrylic fingernails. Every single one left a mark that has never faded.
He's sad and so unlike.
This is Old Trail's Archive, and these are 15 heartfelt classic country songs of the 1980s, ranked and counted down, with the real stories behind every last one. Number 15, Kenny Rogers, Coward of the Country, 1980.
Everyone considered him the coward of...
Before Kenny Rogers became the man the whole world knew, he had already been recording for nearly 2 decades. But in 1980, he released a song so dark and so honest that radio programmers almost didn't know what to do with it. The song was Coward of the Country, written by Roger Bowling and Billy Ed Wheeler, released on United Artists Records, and produced by Larry Butler.
The Gatlin boys just laughed at him when he walked into...
The story came from a surprising place. Wheeler had been thinking of a My Fair Lady-style underdog tale. Then Bowling landed on the phrase, Coward of the County, loved the sound of it, and the two rewrote the entire concept around it, finishing the song in a single weekend. What they created was a story of a boy named Tommy, raised to walk away from trouble by a dying father's deathbed promise. He honors that promise through every taunt the town throws at him.
I'll walk away from trouble when I can.
What makes the song unforgettable is what happens next. 3 men, named the Gatlin Boys in the lyric, attack his love, Becky. And Tommy, the supposed coward, walks into that bar and finishes it. The real-life Gatlin brothers, Larry, Steve, and Rudy, were not happy about their name being used as villains. Larry Gatlin later recalled confronting Roger Bowling about it at the Grand Ole Opry. Bowling's response was not polite. The song was a #1 country hit. It also hit number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It went to number 1 in the United Kingdom, remaining to this day the last traditional country song to top the British charts, gold certified. And it became a television movie starring Rogers himself in 1981. Number 14, Dolly Parton, 9 to 5, 1980.
I tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen for my...
When Jane Fonda approached Dolly Parton about appearing in a movie about workplace inequality, Dolly had one condition. She would only do it if she could write the theme song. It was her first acting role. She had never been in a film. And she walked in and took over the whole thing.
Don't you know it's a rich man's game? No matter...
Parton wrote the song on the set of the 1980 comedy during breaks between takes. She had long acrylic fingernails, and she discovered that when she clicked them together, the rhythm sounded exactly like a typewriter. She used that rhythm as the song's backbone. The record's credits actually read Nails by Dolly. She said she wrote more than 100 verses using real stories she witnessed on set, most of which never made the final cut. Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, and the crew sang background vocals on the recording. Released in November 1980 on RCA Nashville, produced by Greg Perry, 9 to 5 became Parton's first #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the country chart simultaneously. It was certified platinum. It earned Parton 2 Grammy Awards, Best Country Song and Best Country Vocal Performance, Female, plus an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song. It lost the Oscar to fame. The women's organization 9 to 5, founded in 1973 to fight for equal pay, had inspired both the film and the title. Co-founder Karen Nussbaum later called the song a brilliant piece of class storytelling packed into a pop record with an irresistible beat. Number 13, Anne Murray, Could I Have This Dance, 1980.
I'll always remember.
The Urban Cowboy soundtrack in 1980 was one of the most loaded collections of country music ever assembled. Johnny Lee, Mickey Gilley, Kenny Rogers, the biggest names in the format were all on it. But the song that endured longest as a wedding standard came from a Canadian artist who almost didn't record it as a solo at all. Could I Have This Dance was written by Wayland Holyfield and Bob House. It was actually conceived as a duet, and the hope was to pair Anne Murray with Kenny Rogers. Murray loved the song so much that she recorded a demo herself, singing both the male and female parts, just to make sure she didn't lose it. Rogers never joined in. Murray kept it for herself, and her producer Jim Ed Norman brought it in for the urban cowboy film. She later said she agreed the moment she heard it. It's a 3/4 waltz. Why would I not do it?
And held to each other.
Released in August 1980 on Capitol Records, the song went to #1 on the country chart. It crossed over to number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100. It reached number 3 on the Adult Contemporary chart. At the 23rd Annual Grammy Awards, Murray won Best Country Vocal Performance, Female, for this song. She later also included it on her own Greatest Hits album, which eventually sold over 4 million copies in the United States alone. The song has been played at weddings around the world ever since. Number 12, Alabama. Love in the First Degree, 1981. By 1981, Alabama was already rewriting what it meant to be a country band. Three cousins from Fort Payne, Alabama, Randy Owen, Teddy Gentry, and Jeff Cook, had been playing bars and fairs for years before signing with RCA. Their debut major label album launched Tennessee River and Why Lady Why as back-to-back #1s. Then they went into the studio with producer Harold Shedd and recorded Love in the First Degree. Written by Tim Du Bois and Jim Hurt, the song used the metaphor of being found guilty of a crime, the crime being falling in love. Released in October 1981, it became Alabama's 5th straight #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart. Spending 2 weeks at the top, it crossed over to number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it the band's biggest pop hit at that time. Critics later called it the pinnacle of early 1980s pop country, pointing to Randy Owen's vocals, delivered with unrestrained swagger over a mid-tempo track that stood apart from the ballads surrounding it on the album. Du Bois, who co-wrote the song, later went on to run a major Nashville record label. The song he wrote about a joyful love sentence launched one of the most impressive run of chart dominance the format has ever seen. Alabama would go on to achieve 21 consecutive #1 singles between 1980 and 1987, a record that still stands. Number 11, the Oak Ridge Boys, Elvira, 1981. The song Elvira was not written about a woman. It was written about a street. Dallas Frazier wrote it in 1965 after running a red light at the corner of Gallatin Road and a side street in East Nashville called Elvira Street. He put out his own version, a minor hit. Kenny Rogers recorded it in 1970. Rodney Crowell cut a loose, raw version in the late 1970s. None of those recordings came close to what the Oak Ridge Boys did with it in 1981. The Oak Ridge Boys had been a Southern gospel quartet for over 35 years before they crossed into country. When their producer Ron Chancey suggested Elvira for their album Fancy Free, Joe Bonsall, who normally ceded lead vocals to Dwayne Allen, stepped up to sing it. Then Chancey made the call that changed everything. He pulled bass singer Richard Sturban aside and gave him the low, rolling refrain, the Papa Mau Mau, instead of having everyone sing it in the same register. That single production decision turned the song into a generational audience participation moment. The group tested it at a live show in Spokane, Washington before recording the final version. Sturban remembered the crowd going so wild they had to encore it several times. Released in March 1981 on MCA Records, Elvira hit #1 on the country chart and #5 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was certified double platinum, a milestone at that time matched only by Islands in the Stream by Rogers and Parton. It won the Oak Ridge Boys a Grammy for Best Country Performance by a Duo or Group, plus Single of the Year from both the ACM and CMA. Number 10, Barbara Mandrell. I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool, 1981.
I remember wearing straight leg Levi's.
Barbara Mandrell started performing on television as a child in California. She played steel guitar, mandolin, and bass. And every Monday she went back to school and got teased for it. Her classmates called it hillbilly music. She never stopped loving it.
Country, from my head down to my boots.
Years later, she sat down with songwriters Kai Fleming and Dennis Morgan and told them those stories. The Saturday night TV shows, the Monday morning hallways, the little girl who stood by something nobody else in her world respected yet. Fleming and Morgan wrote the song specifically for her. But as Morgan later said, every line was locked into their own lives too. They had grown up the same way. The line about putting peanuts in a Coke? Morgan recalled talking to Fleming about doing exactly that as a kid hanging out at a pool hall in Minnesota.
'Cause I never did fit in. Now look at every.
Produced by Tom Collins and released in April 1981 on MCA, I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool reached #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart on July 4th of that year. The track was recorded in a studio but presented as a live performance, with applause tracks added, and featured an uncredited guest vocal from George Jones on the chorus. The song helped Mandrell win the CMA Entertainer of the Year in 1981. It became her signature song and remains one of the most defiant personal declarations in country music history.
I still act and look the same.
Number 9, Willie Nelson. Always on My Mind, 1982.
Maybe I didn't love you.
The song Always on My Mind began as an apology. Songwriter Wayne Carson was stuck in Memphis, a short trip that had stretched into weeks. When he finally called his wife back in Springfield, Missouri, she let him have it. He told her she was always on my mind. Then he sat down and wrote the first 2 verses of a song, BJ. Thomas recorded it first, but the version that matters had not been recorded yet.
Little things I should have said and done.
A decade later, Johnny Christopher brought the song to Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard. Haggard didn't connect with it. Nelson, in his own words, was bowled over the moment he heard it. He thought he and Haggard might record it together. When Haggard passed, Nelson stayed in the studio after their session wrapped and recorded it alone, just to hear what it might sound like. What came out was one of the most quietly devastating vocal performances in country music history. Produced by Chips Moman and released in February 1982 on Columbia Records.
Quite as good as I should have.
The song spent time at the top of the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart and crossed over to number 5 on the Hot 100. At the 1983 Grammy Awards, it swept 3 categories in one night: Song of the Year, Best Country Song, and Best Male Country Vocal Performance for Nelson. The CMA named it both Single of the Year and, across back-to-back years, Song of the Year for 1982 and 1983. The album of the same name won CMA Album of the Year. What began as a songwriter talking himself out of trouble with his wife became one of the most decorated recordings in the history of American music.
To keep you satisfied, I'll keep you.
Number 8, George Strait, Foolhardy Memory, 1982.
Nickels and dimes, memory.
George Strait almost never became a recording artist at all. After serving in the U.S. Army and earning a degree in agriculture, he kept performing in Texas clubs. His wife Norma convinced him to stay in music when he was ready to quit. He signed with MCA Records after a bar owner connected him to the label, a deal that began with just a single. That single was Unwound. It went to the top 10 and opened the door to his debut album. But it was his second album that changed everything.
The rules but didn't win.
Foolhardy Memory was written by Byron Hill and producer Blake Mevis. Hill had been approached to write a song for a Cold War action movie called The Soldier, produced by Embassy Pictures. The studio had a condition: they would only use the song if the label released it as a single and put the artist in the film. So Hill and Mevis wrote the song, MCA put Strait in the movie, and both the label and the studio got what they wanted. The movie was largely forgotten. The song was not.
At MC, that she walked out the door.
Released in May 1982, Foolhardy Memory reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart on August 28, 1982, the first number 1 of George Strait's career. It won an ASCAP award for Most Performed Country Song of that year. It launched a run of chart dominance, 60 number 1 singles across 3 decades that has never been matched by any artist in any format. What began as a throwaway film placement became the opening note of the most successful chart career in music history. Number 7, Hank Williams Jr., A Country Boy Can Survive, 1982.
Richard Man said at the end of time.
Hank Williams Jr. had spent years living in the shadow of a legend. His father, Hank Williams Sr., was the most iconic figure in country music history. The pressure of that inheritance nearly destroyed him. In 1975, he fell 500 feet down Ajax Peak in Montana, a near-fatal accident that required multiple surgeries and 8 months of recovery. When he came back different. He came back as himself. By 1981, he was on one of the hottest runs in country music. A Country Boy Can Survive was written entirely by Hank Williams Jr., himself, and released on January 18, 1982 on Electric Curb Records, produced by Jimmy Bowen and Hank Williams Jr. The song is a direct response to the increasing urbanization of America and a declaration of rural self-sufficiency. It name-checks a friend killed in New York City. It holds up the knowledge of how to grow food, fix an engine, and live without what cities offer as a form of pride and survival. The song peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart, never hitting number 1, yet becoming one of the most culturally durable recordings of the decade. It was certified 5 times platinum by the RIA. Hank rewrote and re-recorded it after September 11, 2001, renaming it America Will Survive. In 2007, he re-released the original version on its 25th anniversary. The song sold millions without ever standing at the top. Sometimes the number 2 record is the one that lasts forever.
York City, never call me by my name, call me Hillbilly.
Number 6, The Judds' Mama He's Crazy, 1984.
Mama,
In 1983, Naomi Judd was working as a nurse in Nashville. She had a daughter named Winona with a voice that could stop a room. They made a demo tape. Producer Brent Maher heard it and was stunned. By 1983, they had been signed to RCA Victor Records. And the sound Maher built around them, acoustic, raw, intimate, was unlike anything on country radio at the time. Their second single was Mama He's Crazy, written by Kenny Odell and released in April 1984. The lyric is a woman telling her mother she has fallen hard for someone new, almost warning herself in the process, knowing the risk, going in anyway. Maher spent 9 months working with Naomi and Winona before the record was made, refining exactly what the Judds needed to sound like. The music video was shot at their own modest home in Franklin, Tennessee. The whole shoot took less than half a day.
Mama, he's crazy.
On August 4, 1984, Mama He's Crazy reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart, the first of 14 number 1 singles for the duo. It became the first top country hit by a female duo in over 30 years. It won the Judds a Grammy Award for Best Country Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal. It won them the ACM Award for Top Vocal Duo. Naomi had been floating checks to pay the rent just 2 years earlier. This song was the beginning of everything.
he's crazy over me.
5 songs left on this countdown, and every single one of them hit harder than the last. Before we get into the top 5, if you are enjoying these stories, hit that like button and subscribe to Old Trails Archive right now. Every subscription helps keep these classic country stories alive for the next generation. We are talking Grammy wins, chart records, and stories that country music almost lost forever. Stay with us, because the top 5 is where this decade really shows what it was made of. Number 5, Ronnie Milsap, Lost in the 50s Tonight, 1985.
Close your eyes, baby.
Ronnie Milsap was born blind in 1943 in Robbinsville, North Carolina. By the time country music found him, he had already mastered piano, guitar, violin, and bass. He had studied classical music. He had played R&B in the clubs. He brought everything he had ever heard into his country records, and the result was a string of number 1s through the 1970s and into the 1980s that belonged to no single genre and sounded like nothing else on the chart. Lost in the 50s Tonight is a medley, the original song written by Mike Reed and Troy Seals, woven together within the Still of the Night, a 1956 doo-wop hit from the Five Satins. That song had been written by Fred Paris while pulling guard duty in the U.S. Army, inspired by a woman who walked past him. He and his bandmates recorded it in a church basement in New Haven, Connecticut. Milsap took that moment, born in an Army base, recorded in a basement, and turned it into the centerpiece of a song about the way music holds memory inside itself. Released in July 1985 on RCA Nashville, produced by Tom Collins, Rob Galbraith, and Milsap himself, the song was the number 1 country single of 1985, one of only 2 songs that year to spend more than 1 week at the top of the chart. It crossed over to the Adult Contemporary chart, peaking at number 8. It won Milsap his 4th CMA Award for Male Vocalist of the Year. In 2023, it was written about as a record that showed the future of country storytelling, 3 decades before that style became mainstream. Number 4, Reba McEntire, Whoever's in New England, 1986.
You spend an awful lot of time
Reba McEntire had been recording since 1976. She had chart hits, she had a reputation. But it was her 10th studio album that changed everything. And the song that made it happen was one she had to fight to record the way she believed in it. Written by Kendall Franceschi and Quentin Powers. Whoever's in New England is the story of a Southern woman who knows her husband is having an affair during his business trips to Boston. She doesn't accuse, she doesn't leave, she waits. The pain in that waiting is the entire song. McEntire co-produced the album with Jimmy Bowen on MCA Nashville, recording it in October and November of 1985. Bowen later said the song was the biggest thing she had ever done.
When the icy wind blows through you, remember.
Released in January 1986, it became her first music video, filmed on location in Boston, featuring footage of the Public Garden, Trinity Church, and the John Hancock Tower. The video helped drive the single to #1 in May 1986. The album of the same name became her first platinum-certified record and her first #1 album. McEntire won the CMA Entertainer of the Year and Female Vocalist of the Year in 1986. The following year, she won the Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance, her first Grammy. A song about a woman holding herself together while everything falls apart gave Reba McEntire the career she had spent a decade building toward. Number 3, Randy Travis, Forever and Ever Amen, 1987. Paul Overstreet grew up in Mississippi with almost nothing except a love of music. He taught himself guitar. He drove to Nashville in a 1968 Ford Fairlane. He had been working as a security guard. His boss threatened to fire him for falling asleep on duty after long nights trying to make it as a writer. Don Schlitz, his co-writer, was the man who had written The Gambler years earlier. Together, they had already written Randy Travis's first #1. Travis pushed them to write together again. This love that I give. The idea for Forever and Ever Amen came from an unlikely source. According to Schlitz, the inspiration came from a young child, Overstreet's then-fiancé's son, who had learned the Lord's Prayer and was adding Forever and Ever, Amen to the end of everything he said. Overstreet wanted to take the finished song to George Jones. His publishing company wanted it for Randy Travis. Travis won. He was fond of it the moment he heard it, and he named his entire second album after the lyric. Released in March 1987 on Warner Brothers. Nashville, produced by Kyle Leaning, the song reached #1 for 3 weeks on June 13, 1987, the first multi-week chart topper in country music since 1985. It won the Grammy for Best Country Song, the CMA Single of the Year, the CMA Song of the Year, and the ACM Single of the Year, all in the same cycle. The album Always and Forever was certified 5 times platinum. Forever and Ever Amen is considered by many to be the single most beloved country love song of its decade. Number 2, Keith Whitley, Don't Close Your Eyes, 1988.
I know you loved him.
Keith Whitley was raised in Sandy Hook, Kentucky. He started playing music as a teenager alongside Ricky Skaggs and Ralph Stanley's Clinch Mountain Boys, learning traditional bluegrass in one of the most demanding environments in American music. He had the voice and the instincts of a generational talent. Nashville took a long time to let him be himself. His first major label album was pop-produced and didn't sit right with him. He went back to his label, asked them to shelve the recordings they had made together, and convinced them to start over. RCA executive Joe Galante agreed. Keith brought in producer Garth Fundis, and the result was Don't Close Your Eyes, a record that sounded like no one else and like no compromise. The title track was written by Bob McDill, one of Nashville's most decorated songwriters, who had written for Waylon Jennings, Pam Tillis, and many others. The song is about a man asking his partner not to close her eyes, because he believes she fantasizes about someone she used to love. Released in March 1988, it reached #1 on August 13th and became Billboard's #1 country single for the entire year 1988. Whitley died of alcohol intoxication on May 9, 1989, just months after that peak. He was 34 years old. The album was certified platinum. At the 50th CMA Awards, Garth Brooks performed Don't Close Your Eyes, while Whitley's widow, Lori Morgan, watched from the audience. There are voices that only come once.
Darling, this time
Number 1, Clint Black, A Better Man, 1989.
What do you say when it's
Most debut singles from unknown artists don't go to number 1. Most songwriters don't write a career-defining record about the end of a relationship and come out of it grateful. Clint Black was not most artists.
this memory stand clear?
Black grew up in Houston, Texas. He had been writing songs and playing clubs for years when he connected with collaborator Hayden Nicholas. The two had a rhythm. Nicholas would come in with a musical idea, and they would chase the lyric together for days or weeks until it locked. A Better Man started with a real breakup, a 7-year relationship that had just ended. Black wasn't bitter. He was reflective. He suggested the line, "I'm leaving here a better man for knowing you this way," to Nicholas, who had the melodic hook already forming. They finished the song together.
I couldn't do before, now I think I can.
Released on February 18, 1989 on RCA Nashville, produced by James Stroud and Mark Wright, A Better Man became Clint Black's first number 1. The debut album Killin' Time, released that May, was written or co-written entirely by Black. It produced 5 top-of-the-chart singles. It was certified triple platinum. Billboard named A Better Man the number 1 country single of the entire year 1989. Black won the CMA Horizon Award and 4 ACM Awards for that album cycle. He joined Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, Mary Chapin Carpenter, and Travis Tritt in what country music historians call the Class of '89. A group of artists who collectively launched the biggest commercial era in the history of the format.
You still believe in some
A song about walking away from love and being thankful for it. No resentment, no regret. Just a man who grew. That is why it led the whole decade out.
better